Hi there, and welcome to Storytime with Kay. Today we will read Sleeping Beauty, A Moment to Remember by Catherine McCafferty and illustrated by the Disney Storybook Artists. This book was published by Disney Press in 2010. Princess Aurora sighed. She loved being married to Prince Philip, but life in the palace was so different than what she was used to. 3 kind fairies, Merryweather, Flora, and Fauna, had raised her in a cottage in the woods to protect her from an evil spell. Aurora had done so much there, from cooking and cleaning to going on walks and spending time with her animal friends. Now that she lived in the palace, it seemed all she did was plan and attend parties. Tonight there would be yet another royal ball, and everyone was fussing over the plans. The royal chef couldn't decide on an ice sculpture. The royal florist and the table setter couldn't agree on flowers. While they were bickering, Prince Philip came in. "Hello, dearest," he said. Aurora beamed and gave him a hug. The table setter and the florist were annoyed at the interruption. "Princess Aurora," the royal florist said, "could you please tell the royal table setter that she must place the flowers in the middle of each table tonight?" "Princess Aurora," said the royal table setter, "could you please tell the royal florist that our guests will never see one another if I put his big flower arrangements in the middle of each table?" "Why don't you just put a single flower on each table?" Aurora suggested. The 2 servants looked at her, horrified. "A single flower?" they said. Prince Philip cleared his throat. "Ahem," he said. "That will be all. Thank you," Aurora told the servants. She turned to Philip. "It's so good to see—" "Pardon me, Princess Aurora," the royal steward bowed, "but I must have your approval on the seating arrangements." "Thank you," said the princess. "I will look at them." "As soon as we return," Prince Philip finished. Both Aurora and the steward looked at Philip in surprise. "Where are we going?" Aurora asked. Philip smiled. "Out for a ride, by ourselves." The princess smiled. It was just what she had been hoping for. Aurora hurried to change her outfit. As Philip and Aurora set off, the prince remembered something. "I'm sorry, dearest," he said. "I had forgotten that the royal equestrian guards must come with us." Aurora looked sadly at the 10 riders behind them. Then she leaned down and whispered to Philip's horse, Samson. The horse whinnied and charged away from the palace. Aurora's horse, Mirette, galloped after them. Before long, the royal guards were far behind. "Whoa! Whoa, Samson!" the prince shouted as his horse raced ahead. "It's all right, Philip!" Aurora called. They galloped into the forest, and Samson found a path through the trees. He followed it for a while, then stopped very suddenly. Philip sailed over Samson's head and landed in a stream. "No carrots for you, boy," Prince Philip scolded his horse. He looked up and saw Aurora trying to hide a smile. He grinned. "Do you remember this place?" Aurora asked a little later. Philip waded out of the stream and looked around the clearing. He pulled off his boots and dumped the water out of them. Then he set them in the sun to dry. Aurora took off her shoes too. She spun around gracefully, humming a tune. "Yes," Prince Philip said softly. "I remember this place. This is where we first met. I heard you singing sweetly, and then we danced together for the first time." I will never forget that day, said Aurora, no matter how busy we get with our royal duties. Prince Philip smiled. Nor will I. When I am with you, all others disappear. Philip and Aurora smiled, wishing they could bring the peacefulness of the glade back to the palace. Their peaceful moment ended as the royal equestrians thundered into the glade. Philip put on his boots and cape. Then he picked up a fallen flower and handed it to Aurora. Aurora took the gift and smiled. We should go back and get ready for the ball, she said. You go ahead, dear, Philip said. I'll be back soon. Aurora nodded and smiled. On the way back to the palace, she thought of a surprise for her husband. Meanwhile, Philip had an idea of his own. Not a word of this to the princess, he said to her animal friends as he began to gather some flowers. At the castle, Princess Aurora worked on Philip's surprise for the rest of the afternoon. Servants moved tables, laid tablecloths, and gathered flowers. Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather flitted about, helping wherever they could. More than once, Aurora heard a servant murmur, "Our guests will certainly be surprised." Aurora just smiled. "It is Prince Philip I want to surprise," she said. "Not a word of this to him." That night, Aurora had just finished getting dressed when Prince Philip came into the room. He held out a simple crown he had made from flowers. "Would you like to wear this too?" he asked. "Oh, Philip!" Aurora put on the flower crown and hugged her husband. "It's perfect for this evening. What a lovely gift!" Aurora took Philip's hand. "Now I have a surprise for you." She led the prince down the stairs to the courtyard. The courtyard was decorated with flowers and trees. Water danced in the fountain. Aurora's woodland friends were there too. "The glade will always be in our hearts," Aurora whispered, "but now it is in our palace too." Just then, Philip's father, King Hubert, came over. "This is much better than the stuffy balls I usually attend," he said to Princess Aurora. "Thank you for all your hard work, my dear." Philip took Aurora's hand and led her to the middle of the courtyard. "It is beautiful, Aurora. Thank you so much." Aurora smiled at her husband and they began to dance. Like the first time they had met, this too would be a moment to remember. The end. Thank you for reading along. Be sure to rate and follow us for new episodes posted daily.